It takes a brave man indeed to venture into the world of titanium handle, premium steel bladed knives in today's market, especially if you are not marketing at a rock bottom price. But someone has to do it, said Yui, and here we go. Let's welcome Vosteed Thunderbeast into the world of premium build, premium priced knives. Let's do a quick rundown of this version. Blade M390, PVD-coated stonewash black. Handle natural color titanium, titanium Vancor lock button, black PVD-coated milled titanium pocket clip, titanium spacer. Pretty safe choices in the premium materials realm. Is this a hidden Morse code message? If you read it like this, it's letter B. If you read it like that, it's letter V. The only deep meaning I can find in that is B and V in some alphabets are basically considered to be the same letter, just with different emphasis. Reference to yin and yang. Let's focus on the knife though. Quad action, front flip, back flipper. And for this one, you need to do a light switch action. If you do a light switch action, it flips open quite nicely. But if you do push button action, the front flipper will prevent you from fully opening. You have to overcorrect or compensate. And of course, thumb flick and a reverse flick. Really good detent. And no surprise, Vancor lock with a black, probably PVD coated collar and a black hardware on the back. Vancor lock is one of the strongest locks presented today in the market, but it's not the safest one because there's still a way to accidentally unlock it by simply placing a knuckle of your thumb onto the button, like so. There's a little bit of detent there, so it does require additional force to break it farther, but in the heat of the project, you may not notice it. And on some knives, it might have led to cutting your finger, but not on this one, because thanks to this immense finger choil, it will just strike your hand thusly without hopefully cutting it, or maybe nicking it just a little bit. But we are knife people. We are cherishing our scars. Of course, I'm just kidding. If you choked up here, nothing bad will happen. And if you choked up there, again, you will have a tactile warning from the flipper passing next to your finger. It will slow down the blade, and then you will feel a slight pinch here if the knife unlocked in your hand. However, let me make a recommendation one more time. If Yui is watching, this collar could be also used as a pivoting locking system of some sort that just locks out the button when you need to. Let's do obligatory size comparisons. Here is Paramilitary 2 and PM3. Here's Kunwu S-Tau and Reate. Is it M105TZ? From Kaiser, we had this Elijah Isham Theta collaboration. And to me, and I could be wrong, this looks like a bit of an inspiration knife for this design. Style-wise. Function-wise, this is eons ahead of that one. And another knife in the realm of inspiration could possibly be Microtech MSI full size. And I have to say that because now Microtech is coming out with MSI Mini, which is smaller, but the regular MSI is roughly the same, has a longer handle. And it wouldn't be a Vosteed video if Raccoon 2 didn't make an appearance. So let's go into that one. You got a little bit more blade on a Thunderbeast and quite a bit more, well, about the same amount of handle. So the proportions on the Thunderbeast are more polished, more refined, more balanced, so to speak. Let's get some measurements, shall we? Definitely not a small knife, coming to full 8 3/8 inches long, which is 212 millimeters, and the blade length here is 3.5 inches or 89 millimeters, with a cutting edge length of 3.25, just a hair over, and in millimeters it is 88 millimeters. So really well balanced blade geometry. If I had to guess, it weighs about 5 ounces. Let's see, first in grams, 135 grams, and 4.75, 4 3/4 ounces. That is not a lightweight knife, but they optimized the scales not only for weight with these deep milling cutouts in there. Hope you can see them well. Very nicely machined, but also for ergonomics, because this sculpting here all the way around, the chamfering, creative chamfering I should say, creates this really nicely grippy handle. No hot spots. The pocket clip fits into your hand really well. Even though it has this little pointy nose, I don't really feel it, especially in this grip. This grip, the pocket clip disappears. And also it has an amazing ergonomic for the reverse grip for all these urban ninjas amongst us. Let's see. You can hold it like this too, if you can manage, and that gives you a very nice striking area here. Not super pointy, but it will definitely scrape some DNA. The closest comparison within the Vosteed's own lineup is, of course, Raccoon 2 with titanium scales in premium M390 steel. Now this guy weighs just a little less, 132 grams or 4.65 ounces, so 1/10 of an ounce less. And it definitely has a maybe less tactical vibe. It's a more practical looking knife, but the blade geometry is quite different. So this is geared towards more of the middle of the range, and this is definitely geared toward penetrating and slicing, although looking at the grinds, they will perform about the same. I will repeat myself and say that the Thunderbeast has slightly better balance between the handle length and the blade length, so aesthetically more pleasing, but in all practical respects, these knives are equals, especially if you consider that their MSRP is exactly the same. And these knives surprisingly have the same blade thickness, 138 thousandths or 3.5 millimeters. So with a slightly higher grind, Raccoon will slice just a hair better, but the Thunderbeast will give you a little more robustness. When you see my handheld microscope making an appearance, you know we're about to get into the nerdiest part of this video. I'm going to link it in the description because it's now one of the main tools in my blade sharpening, and you can see why. I can get every possible detail on the edge as I'm forming it. And we are looking at the Thunderbeast's edge. Very, very cool. It felt sharp, but it looks sharp too. We're looking straight onto the apex, and as you can see, there's no clear shiny line. That means that the apex comes to a very, very tight line, very pointy in a cross section. So there's not much radius to the apex, meaning this knife will probably cut like a beast. The sharpening choil looks good. By the way, the pin engagement when it's in a close position does not come even close to the sharpening choil, so you're going to have plenty of opportunities to resharpen this knife. How often, I don't know until we test the hardness of the blade, but you can see that along the entire edge, the apex is extremely well done. It's not a problem. The tip may be just slightly overstropped, as you can see by a tiniest rounding off at the tip, but I like the striations are in the same direction. This is my wife's blonde hair, and I am attempting to whittle it with the Thunderbeast's blade. It's tricky to set up and film, so bear with me here, slowing it down a little bit for you, and you can see that it's taking a nice little whittle right there of the hair. Human hair is about 4 thousandths of an inch thick, or could be thinner, a little thicker. I'm attempting a second cut. The blade will come into the frame any second now. Really? Come on, get in there. Tricky, there you go. Yes, and boom, just like that, it cuts through the hair. Anyway, this is a challenging test as well, because not every knife, even the sharpest ones, don't always cut through that fibrous, rough edge of the unsupported, suspended in the air paper towel. And this knife does it well. I caught in a finger choil there in the first long cut. Here's the paper towel tube. Let's see. Can we get in? Right away, not a problem with a blade that length. It cuts cleanly through. Look at the clean cut here. Let's do a few more times, see how many rings we can get. Bam. Nice. Clean it up. Smooth. Fantastic. Now I'm cutting across actual seams, the spiral seams, so it's a challenge. If you don't believe me, try it with your sharpest knives. Anything you see here, you're welcome to try it at home. All right, let's see where that magic comes from. Only best treated blades can be sharpened to hair whittling edge and retain it through the cutting of those paper tubes because they're fibers and they have glue in them. We start disassembly by removing these two T6 screws that hold the smiley face lock cover in place. And now the lock is exposed and revealed to us. When I press the button, the lever, the spring lever, moves as well. Taking two T8 screws out. There you go. I can still manipulate the button so that you can see how it engages. The bronze color part is the pivot barrel that has a slot in which the locking lever operates. Now the frame half comes off. Here's the locking lever right there. And the part that engages the blade has a little detent bowl in it and engages the detent hole in the blade. Here's the stop pin. It's a shoulder pin design. Very robust. Not going to fail. And let's take the blade and the bearing number 1 out. Plenty of lube there. I don't know why. Between M390 and the ceramic bowls, there's really no need for that much lube. That was my Eye Ultra flashlight that I carry on my neck all the time now, and it did not magnetically attract to the bowl, so I presume they're ceramic. That much lube actually detriments the function of the bearing, so I don't know why they even bothered. All right, to the Rockwell tester we go. As always, the first step in my Rockwell hardness test is to grab this serialized, calibrated to 62 HRC NIST standard calibration block, place it on the anvil, apply minor load. When the hand in the middle of the dial lines up with a red dot, I then set the 0 on the large hand right there and release the major load of 150 kilos. 10 seconds later, the segment is accelerated, by the way. 62.3 is my reading, so we're well within the repeatability and accuracy calibration, and now we're putting the blade on the same anvil. Plenty of real estate on the back of the blade, so I am going to get 3 good pokes out of this one. Setting the 0. Can you guys hit the like button and ask yourself a question? If you are not subscribed yet to my channel, why not? 62.7 HRC. So for M390 to reach this hardness, the blade maker has to jump through some hoops. High temperature austenitizing, double cycle temper with cryogenic treatment in between. I'm holding my breath. 62.6 HRC. Time to celebrate, perhaps? Let's do a third poke first, though. By the way, testing just one sample out of a batch is not an industry standard method, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise, meaning yours can be different from mine. 62.4 HRC. I am not done yet, stand by. We got average of 62.6, which is 0.6 higher than what manufacturer advertises. Their advertised range is 61 plus or minus 1. And that's why I'm rechecking the calibration. The blade is PVD-coated, which stands for plasma vapor deposit, and that's molecules of carbon what's being deposited, hardest substance on Earth. And because this process requires high temperature and duration, a diligent maker will often overshoot the desired hardness range in order to leave some room for softening of the blade during PVD process. This measurement came out at 62.2, so correcting for this minor error would bring the average down to 62.4. So now it's time to totally nerd out on this lock. I pulled out the main lock assembly here. I'm not going to take it apart any farther. That's the button, and that's how it screws into this barrel. And then the barrel is locked to the frame by this locating feature right here. So I am going to put it in. So that's what creates operator interface, basically. That's your interface, this button. It looks like it's freely floated, but when the other scale is installed, it can, when I press the button, it depresses the top of the locking lever here. The locking itself happens in this area. The blade captures the lock bar thusly, and when there's pressure one way or another, the interface between the barrel and the blade with this locking bar creates the necessary compression to lock the blade in place. Because this part is symmetrical, you get the same level of compression whether you apply pressure from the blade edge or from the spine of the blade. That's why I was not able to defeat this lock on the Hype Smasher when I tested another Vancouver knife. The opportunity to incorporate a safety mechanism is actually there, and it's simpler than what I was suggesting early in the video. Instead of making this bezel rotary, all UE would have to do is integrate a spring-loaded detent bowl that prevents this from free floating. So when the pressure from the lock bar is pushing the button all the way out, I would have to overcome a small detent force to push it in. And that would give me not only additional security, but a tactile indication that I'm about to unlock the knife accidentally. Absolutely free of charge. I'm fleshing out my idea. So this is the pivot barrel. This is the push button. They fit together like so. And this cylindrical portion of the push button, right now is just a cylinder screwed on. There's a screw inside here. Well, we'll cut a radial cross-section channel in it all the way across. Very simple lathe operation. And then in the barrel itself, we would drill a hole with an open bottom but taper at the bottom that will be timed to retain the bowl. So it will be slightly less than the main diameter of the detent bowl. There would be a spring and a set screw all in here. So when the blade is in unlocked position, the button will not be engaging the detent. When the blade is in the open position, this channel will be timed to engage the detent. And when the user pushes the button, it would have to overcome this spring tension in order to unlock the blade. I think that additional layer of security would add tactile feeling to when you're unlocking, and also will require a little more force than just a simple button push on a Vancouver lock. Whew. Huey, free of charge this time. It would not sort of deprive the end user from smooth experience, because detent from the same roughly size bowl, maybe slightly larger bowl than the main detent, would create just enough retention force to minimize the chance of accidental unlocking. All right, let's put it all together, and starting with the bearing. This is so straightforward, even a caveman can do it. Or metal complex. All right, that's like that. I'm going to put it on like so. Let's not forget the back spacer. I love the fits. You know, I have to really, it's truly a slip fit. Very, very tricky machining involved, or very precise setup on the machine. And now, is that magnetic? Yeah, there's a magnet there. Interesting. That keeps the button engaged with the lock bar at all times. But I think there is enough metal there to introduce that detent mechanism that I'm talking about. All right, so I'm gonna probably drop this guy in first, the smiley face guy. And those are T6 to remind you. Of course, I'm not prepared here. I love my Hoto. I can do most of it single-handed. The links to all my tools will be in the description. And yes, I want you to buy this screwdriver using my link. Running the channel is not a particularly profitable proposition when you don't provide affiliate links to the products you review, as I'm learning 3 years in. All right, so we are in. We're functional. I'm not going to play with it until I put these two screws in, and those are T8s. All the other screws are hidden inside the knife. Very clean design. Very. It looks like they didn't sort of like over design it just in order to hide more screws, because I think it's kind of silly. I mean, 2 screws like this visible, no big deal to me. But they did clean it up quite a bit from every other angle. All right, so let's see. It's locked solid. See, now that I know how it's made, when I apply pressure here, the top of the hole in the blade contacts the barrel, and then a reaction force from the barrel contacts the lock bar from this direction. So there are 2 equal and opposing forces, and that makes it a nearly unbreakable lock. So the only way to defeat this lock is to actually misshapen or crack steel that it's made out of, which with a human hand it's impossible. Obviously, if I put it on a hydraulic press, I can do it. So I would not hesitate to put it in the same lineup as a Demco Triad lock, Shark lock, and any other, you know, super robust locks out there. And that wraps up my presentation, guys. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and enjoy this knife. This is definitely a brand to be reckoned with going forward.